What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So in roughly an hour after this video goes live, we'll have that 7-minute Pokemon live stream. Yeah, it's a 7-minute live stream, but we should hopefully see something new about Generation 8, whether it's just a trailer or who knows. I'll be doing some coverage after that live stream happens. I'm probably not going to live stream because it's like 7 minutes long, but I'll do some coverage afterwards, and we'll kind of go over some of the stuff in the trailer that they're probably going to end up showing, and maybe some new details heading into E3. Should be pretty interesting to see that. Today, though, we're going to go over a few things, including THQ Nordic doing the weirdest thing I think I've ever seen from a public relations standpoint. Not necessarily anything to do with the sites or anything, but just I think THQ Nordic has a bit of a PR problem here, and that's outside of the event that happened yesterday. I mean, just in general, like internally, something is off about what's going on there. We're going to go over that, and then we can also take a look at a Q&A that's set to take place over the next few days that seems to be a part of Nintendo's Treehouse for the Pokemon Days event. So interesting stuff there. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Do hit the like button. It does help out. We're going to start today with Final Fantasy VII on the Switch, because we did get information about its file size, which is 3.7 gigabytes. So you have to make sure you have that cleared on either the internal storage on your system or your SD card. And the game does support several languages, which includes Japanese, English, Spanish, French, and German. It will support save data cloud backup, which we would expect it to, but I mean, honestly, at this point, who knows? Sometimes with Nintendo, there's some weird things going on with that at times, right? Like Splatoon, for example. I mean, Pokemon, come on. But it's also going to support the Pro Controller. Again, something I probably shouldn't have to tell you, but we've seen other games that don't use the Pro Controller. There's also a new update showing up for Modern Combat Blackout. I said I would check it out after the updates take place, if they did one. Good to see that they are, because I was concerned they were just going to drop it and leave. But this is pretty much the closest Switch owners have to a Call of Duty type game. It's still not great as a Twitch shooter, because it sounds like the frame rate still isn't going to be to what it would have to be, which is about 60 frames per second. So like Splatoon 2 is very smooth, and when you go to this, it feels like you're underwater. But anyway, a large list of patch notes that you're seeing here. One of the things that they do talk about is that they're going to have a field of view slider to the settings, which is good because it is very zoomed in if you play it by default. So we're going to be able to zoom out a bit. They are increasing the range of camera speed settings, which is good for fine tuning. They're going to change a few things about with the shop to make it so we know that there is no microtransactions. They're just going to call it the black market. Visual improvements, and they are going to work a bit on the dynamic resolution and frame rate drops during moments of high action. They say they're going to cap the frame rate at 30 frames per second for both docked and portable mode, which tells me I guess they can't get it to 60 frames, which is still weird to me considering it's being brought over from a mobile device. However, from what I've seen, it really is just being pushed over from a mobile device. This isn't like designed for the Switch from the ground up, which probably would have made it so they could have got there if it was designed from the ground up, but that's kind of what they're working with here. Until there is a Call of Duty entry on the Switch, I get it that a lot of people are playing this right now is because this is it. There's no Call of Duty yet. However, I do think when a Call of Duty shows up, I'm not saying even if, I think when, because the install size keeps growing, Activision will eventually say, okay, yeah, let's move one over. No one's going to play Modern Combat then, because there will just be a Call of Duty. Also, Nintendo's mobile business seems to keep rolling along. We had Dragalia Lost introduced, and it came out a few months ago, and people weren't too sure about it. It's kind of been quiet since then. However, it appears to have now passed Super Mario Run, which is roughly $68 million or so in revenue. It's also passed seemingly Animal Crossing as well, which is just over $70 million, because Dragalia Lost is now at $75 million in revenue. It's nowhere near what Fire Emblem is, which Fire Emblem, by the way, is $500 million. It's $500 million in revenue from the mobile market. And I keep telling you guys, you see why some of these companies are looking at it, because they are service-based games that go on for years, sometimes forever even, and it continues to make lots of money if you do it right. Like, they're fortunate to have the Fire Emblem IP that seems to have worked great with mobile devices, in Japan especially, where they're getting a ton of their revenue from. But even Dragalia Lost, which of course was something that they just made up brand new, good to see that apparently that is rolling along as well at $75 million, despite being a new IP. It's not an Animal Crossing, it's not a Mario, it's not a Fire Emblem, but it's still doing better than Mario Run and Animal Crossing. So interesting stuff there to see that. Then guys, some of the quick news out of the way. Let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with THQ Nordic, because we've been following THQ Nordic here on the channel for a while now, because they have been growing rapidly. They're picking up a ton of IPs, and they're putting out games that are not full-priced games. A lot of them are remasters of older games. They're bringing them up to newer hardware, and it seems to be working out, at least for them so far, as they continue to grow and attain more IPs. They just recently got, over $200 million to go spend on more. They have things like Time Splitters. Darksiders belongs with them, so if you enjoyed Darksiders, you've been playing THQ Nordic stuff. But they did some weird stuff yesterday, and I thought they were hacked at one point, because what was happening from a PR standpoint, if you really think about it, didn't make a lot of sense, because generally to be a PR or public relations person, you have to actually be good at making the company look good to the public. You're supposed to be like the spin master. You're supposed to spin stuff in a positive light no matter what, and you're not supposed to hurt the brand, and it seems like what they did yesterday hurt the brand, at least online. Now, I don't think what happened yesterday is going to affect them to the standard people who just walk into a store and aren't online or plugged in like a lot of us are, because they're just going to see a game on the wall. They might not even know that THQ Nordic makes Sphinx. They might walk in, see Sphinx on the wall for the Switch, and be like, oh, cool, Sphinx, I remember this, I'm going to go buy it. Or your kid who's just like, I want this. That's not going to affect it as much, but it definitely hurt their image a bit online, at least in the short term. I'll be curious how this works out long term as well. Anyway, on Twitter, they posted they were going to do an AMA or an Ask Me Anything, and that's fine. That's something that companies and celebrities and stuff do all the time. But they'll hold it on different sites, like Reddit, for example, has an entire AMA section. You might just do it right on your Twitter. You just make a Twitter thread, and boom, people start asking questions. That's worked out well enough in the past. But they decided to go to a site called 8chan, and maybe it's because I'm old, I really didn't know anything about 8chan at all, and at that point I said, oh no, 4chan's multiplying. So I did the one thing that most people would do in that case. You do some research, you look it up, and then I said, oh wow, that's interesting. Why are they going to a place that has a reputation that's been tarnished heavily in the past with tons of controversy? Now, I don't go on 8chan or even 4chan. The most I ever see 4chan is when there are rumors that are fully anonymous that get posted there. That's pretty much the extent of it. Mostly there's a link, you go to it, you see it, and then I leave. And most of the time the rumors aren't even correct, except for that Pokemon Let's Go one where they posted everything on April 1st, so good job to them. And it was interesting because they posted this, and it went over as well as you would figure with a site that has a tainted reputation when it comes to things dealing with things like with minors and swatting and all kinds of stuff. People weren't too excited about it. Seemed like a really bad idea from a PR perspective to do this to a company that is on the rise right now. And after you start seeing their Twitter thread, like here, for example, is the initial post, and then they try to continue to explain why they did it in broken grammar at times and bad punctuation. And it was almost like they were typing super fast, try to put it out there while they were on the run, maybe on their phone or something. It says the opportunity was here and we took it. We got approached in a very friendly and polite manner and were assured said person, shout out to Mark. Oh, okay. Shout out to Mark, apparently. We'll take care of the nasty stuff. So here we are. Well, it seems like they were at least aware as to what was on the site, whether it's then or in the past or whatnot. It seems like this would have been something that you would do a little research on and say, oh, you know what? That might not be good for our brand. They're in charge of PR. Their job is to protect the brand and make it look good. And the only thing I could think of here is that they were looking for a reaction. That's why they did it, because it's very clear that they seem to be aware of the site. Like me, I wouldn't have been aware, and I would have looked it up, and I would have said, oh, thanks for the offer. It's probably not something we're going to do right now, and that would have been kind of it. But they went for it, and it makes me wonder if they did it on purpose or if this really was an accident, because that is a serious lapse in judgment for what you know was going to happen to the public. They also go on further, and they do take full responsibility, it seems, apologize and everything, and follow up tweets saying, I'm terribly sorry for the short-sightedness of my decision and promise to be far more vigorous in my assessment of these activities in the future. This was not about being edgy. This blew up, and I very much regret to have done it in the first place. Philip Brock, PR and Marketing Director, THQ Nordic. So this appears to have actually just been their entire public relations and marketing director who decided to do this, which still has me questioning their PR in general, because you hire people to make sure your company again, is in a good light at all times pretty much. And if something bad happens, it's their job to try to explain it away. And they actually ended up taking the company and putting it into a bad situation because keep in mind, this has nothing to do with the developers at THQ Nordic building the games that they want to put out. This is the PR trying to represent that company, right, for THQ Nordic. So it's kind of a shame for the people in the cubicles right now putting in hours and hours trying to get these games up and running and then out for us. It's more the company that's in the way here with their PR. So I'm not sure why this happened. It seems very odd with some of the tweets that they put out, almost like they didn't know about the place, but then they kind of did before because, you know, shout out to Mark, obviously. It's weird, but it's something to keep an eye on. And I think THQ Nordic should go back and really assess their PR at this point because it's their job to predict how the public will react to something. And this seemed like obvious to everybody that this was a bad idea from a PR perspective, whether you like 8chan or not, I don't know, but this isn't something you would probably go into your boss's office and say, you know what, got a good idea. AMA on 8chan, let's do it. Probably wouldn't. Next up, let's talk about the Q&A that's going to be taking place in a Treehouse after this Pokemon event that's happening this morning. I'm not really sure what's going to be happening in these Q&As, but this is actually put out to kind of give us a schedule of events as you're seeing here. And you can see right away they have all kinds of cool little things there, face painting. And then they also have Q&A with Nintendo Treehouse 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Wednesday. Then the follow-up Thursday, they'll do Q&A with Nintendo Treehouse 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. There's basically Q&A like every day here, and I really don't know what's going to come out of that. I mean, seriously, there's question and answers with Nintendo Treehouse. I don't think that's being streamed or anything. Maybe it's stuff we'll find out about later. I mean, if it is streamed, that's cool, but it's interesting to hear about a Q&A session taking place. I don't know if it's about the new Pokemon game that they're probably showing off this morning, or if it has just more to do just with Pokemon in general, like, oh, what made you think of this Pokemon? How did you come up with this design in a game or just the creature itself, the Pokemon itself, right? What made you do that? It's hard to say what this Q&A is actually for, but they're having one, so hey, maybe we'll find out some more cool stuff. Next up, let's talk about Resident Evil 2, because it keeps rolling along. We heard they had shipped 3 million units, and now Capcom put out a press release saying they have now shipped 4 million copies of Resident Evil 2, which is amazing. That is great to see. It's good for, obviously, the horror genre and Resident Evil in general, because those games have sold okay in the past. I think, Resident Evil 6 is the best-selling one, which is still crazy to me. It's mind-blowing to me. But now we have Resident Evil 2, which is a full remake of Resident Evil 2, which is great, because that means that remakes appear to sell, so Resident Evil 3 is probably getting a remake, and Nemesis is going to be amazing because everyone loves Mr. X. He just makes the game so much more comfortable to get through. So now, throw in Nemesis, who's crazy fast with a rocket launcher, and it's just going to be this really nice, relaxing experience that you can play at night with all the lights out. Now, it's going to be insane to see Nemesis, by the way, in a full remake. It's going to be great. But it's good to see this because this is not a live service game, and EA is, they've got to be confused right now. They're like, we're giving them what they want, we're giving them the microtransactions, we're giving them the live services. I don't get it. Well, here's Resident Evil 2, obviously performing well within expectations, doing really well. And then here's EA struggling with Anthem. So, hey, EA, maybe try doing a Knights of the Old Republic 3 straight up. That might actually sell. Then our last bit of news, let's talk about GOG.com, GOG.com, which is the digital marketplace that CD Projekt Red owns. And you can go there, buy all kinds of games. It's basically like Steam, essentially, or any other digital marketplace out there. However, they usually sell games of DRM free and everything, so that's cool. But it seems like there is some kind of issues going on over there, as they have seemed to have laid off a dozen people quietly. They haven't really said much about it, just kind of out there. Kotaku followed up on all of this, and they got two different stories. That one, that they were restructuring, obviously to cut costs and everything, and the other one was that this was a company, or at least GOG.com was a company that was struggling to break even at times, and that they were in dire straits. And it's interesting to hear about that, because that's the first time we've heard that GOG would be having these issues. It's nothing that I've heard of before. They seem to be kind of business as usual, but you don't really lay people off generally. Activision obviously just did that, but you usually don't lay people off if you're doing well. You usually lay people off to restructure and cut costs. Activision, of course, did that to try to make their investors happy, but It's odd to see GOG do that, but let me know what you guys think about that down below with GOG laying people off. Do you think they're actually in trouble, or do you think they were just restructuring, there were just too many people for any one job, and they're like, well, we don't need you as much anymore? Let me know, guys, down below. And guys, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Without talking too much about if you like an 8chan or a 4chan or a 3chan or whatnot, let me know what you think about THQ Nordic's thoughts on holding an AMA in a place that is probably not the best from a PR perspective. Is it their PR agency just doing or their PR section just doing a bad job? Or do you think this was on purpose? Because everything they said seems like they were aware of what the place was, despite seemingly being surprised by any backlash. Let me know what you guys think about this down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.